Macedonia in English. Just about everything you want to know.
Macedonian business potentials presented in Los Angeles. The presentation before 60 companies and over 100 people present in Los Angeles has been very well accepted and resulted in several individual meetings. Moreover, part of the companies have shown interest for further contacts with the purpose of possible investments in Macedonia, stated Prime Minister Nikola Gruevski after addressing the business forum. He added that individual meetings had been held with representatives of companies from the fields of food, automobile and construction, as well as cosmetics industry. The presentation was also attended by the representative of the World Bank in charge of the Doing Business publication. He only confirmed what we have pinpointed as advantage for investing in Macedonia. This is positive since whenever there is a third part of credibility, it supports what we say about Macedonia and increases the trust of the investors, said Prime Minister Gruevski. Minister Kraljev on missed classes during celebration in Tetovo. Classes missed in Tetovo schools due to the Albanian flag jubilee celebration will be held additionally, Minister of Education and Science Panče Kraljev announced. He emphasized that the State Education Inspectorate has handed in such a decision to all school principals. Schools are to submit plans for the missed classes within 8 days. The minister said that this kind of action was compulsory and it was in accordance with the law, announcing sanctions against schools which were fully closed during the celebration. Governor Bogov assures no risk of bankruptcy. With a 30.5% of GDP public debt, Macedonia is safe from bankruptcy, said Macedonian National Bank Governor Dimitar Bogov, regarding the claims of some economic experts that the level of indebtedness is unsustainable and that the government's economic policies jeopardize the state's solvency. There are enough deposits to cover liabilities without any difficulties. The intention to decrease the budget deficit indicates that the government is aware of all the risks, so it reacts appropriately to the situation, said Governor Bogov. He notes that Minister of Finance Zoran Stavreski has specified the public debt amount, refuting former Governor Petar Goshev's claims that the debt exceeded 45% of GDP and his suggestion that through the criminal code certain sanctions be enforced for incomplete display of data. The Macedonian economy will be exposed to increased external risks, bringing about great uncertainty, Bogov said, expressing his expectations based on the pessimistic forecasts regarding the economic growth in the Eurozone. At present, Macedonian National Bank does not intend to change the forecast of 2.6% for next year's GDP growth. Ninth tender to sell Ohis fails. The public call for collection of bids to sell the shares of the state and the Fund of Pension and Disability Insurance in Ohis company failed as no bids had been submitted, they informed from within the Ministry of Economy. The ministry will inform the government about this in order to review the possible options and receive instructions to find a permanently efficient solution which will provide appropriate conditions for Ohis to continue the successful business operations. The deadline was prolonged from the 14th of November to the 30th of November to enable the two companies which had already picked up the tender documentation to prepare high-quality offers. This was the ninth attempt to sell Ohis. Minister Stavreski on economic situation. In the period of 4 years, more than 1,550,000,000 euros have entered in Macedonia on the basis of foreign investments, which is twice more than the total income in the period from 1990 to 2005, excluding privatizations and state monopolies, stated Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Zoran Stavreski. All countries are aggressive and try to attract investors. If you just sit and do nothing, then nobody will come. You should be ambitious, visit countries, explain and persist in showing the country in positive light. But before doing all this, you should fix the country's total relations in the area of business, stressed Stavrovsky. According to him, the World Bank continues to be one of the major economic partners of Macedonia. Doctors and Health Minister lock horns over protests. In sign of protest, doctors marched from the clinical center in Skopje to the Health Ministry demanding public apology or resignation from Health Minister Todorov. They qualified the threats for dismissal and sanctions as an act of violence by the minister. For each uttered lie there will be a court epilogue, and for each unlawfully decreased wage, lawsuits will be filed. By threatening with sanctions, the minister shows lack of knowledge on the laws or tries to go beyond them, stressed Dr. Dejan Stavric, president of the Independent Trade Union of Skopje Clinical Center. According to doctors, the mass turnout proved that the entire doctor branch supported them. Previously, Minister Todorov accused certain doctors of neglecting cancer patients, appealing for the alleged party-orchestrated protest to be brought to an end in order to avoid enforcing sanctions. The Health Ministry also appealed to all citizens which have been deprived of health care to report the cases to the ministry. SDSM and VMRO-DPMNE on doctors' protests. SDSM, or the opposition as a whole, is not behind this strike, nor is it in any way included in its organization. However, it has full understanding for the doctors' dissatisfaction, which mostly arises from the behavior of Minister Todorov, said SDSM Secretary General Andrei Petrov in response to the statements of the respective minister. With the direct threats and offenses, Minister Todorov reached the heights of the regime characteristic of his rule. The violent tone is an effort to intimidate the doctors and make them quit their legitimate right to strike, this time blaming the opposition for standing behind the scenario, said Petrov. SDSM Secretary General also asked the minister to stop threatening and start negotiating with the doctors. A day earlier, Minister Todorov said that the strike had been staged by the opposition, and if the participants do not decide to stop it, sanctions would be enforced. On Saturday, ruling party VMRO-DPMNE expressed doubts over SDSM's claims that they were not responsible for the strike and emphasized that the procedure prescribed by law, according to which the trade union's representation has been defined, as well as the procedure for making collective agreements, have been adopted during SDSM rule. Exotic animals seized at Tabanovce border crossing. Macedonian customs officers seized about 20 young exotic animals near Tabanovce border crossing. The animals are different species of geckos, chameleons, scorpions and snakes. The animals have been taken to Skopje City Zoo and accommodated in line with their needs. Director of Customs Administration, Vancho Kargov, informed that there is a special import regime for these animals. Although such animals have not been seized in the past, several months ago the customs officers seized a large number of birds and small turtles.
Macedonia in English. Just about everything you want to know.